Dear Esther, the gulls do not land here anymore. I've noticed that this year they seem to shun the place. Maybe it's the depletion of the fishing stock driving them away. Perhaps it's me. When he first landed here, Donnelly wrote that the herds were sickly and their shepherds the lowest of the miserable classes that populate these Hebridean islands. 300 years later, even they have departed.
Dear Esther. Dear Esther is a walking simulation about you walking around an island while having kidney stones. With the gameplay, the main problem with the gameplay is that there aren't any. The only thing you can do is walk. You walk and walk and walk. You can't run, you can't jump, you can't pick up stuff, you can't interact with objects, you can't do really anything. The only thing you can do is walk. Those things you can do, the game do automatically for you, like, crouch or, flashlight, but that's only, if the game wants it to. Otherwise, the only thing you do is walk and walk. And really, it becomes horrible really, really fucking fast. It's pretty nice though, a pretty nice view and everything, but that's about it really. But it's just everything. I mean, you can't run, you can't jump, you can't crouch, you can't do anything automatically, then you just walk really. You just walk and walk and walk, and not really all that much room for exploration either, because sometimes if you try to explore, you would just come across an invisible wall, and then let's just take the route that they want you to take, and then eventually it leads to a cave, and then it leads to a tower, and then it's the end really. It's a very goddamn short game. So, like I said, the main problem with the gameplay is that there isn't any gameplay. But of course, if your definition about gameplay is just walking down a path that leads to really nowhere, then of course there's gameplay. But, in the real definition of what is gameplay, there isn't any gameplay in this game. But what about the story then? Well, the only good thing about the story is, and probably the only good thing in the whole game, is the atmosphere. Why? Well, because it gets through pretty fast, and it stays there pretty fast, and you really just get in the atmosphere because of the ghosts you see, which doesn't really lead to anything, but still, the atmosphere is the only working thing in this game. But it still isn't all that good, because the things that really makes, the atmosphere work doesn't lead to anything. The ghost doesn't lead to anything. The ghosts are very good because they aren't really, if you're gonna put it as, meant to see. And I mean, they're not easy to find, but when they find you, it probably scares the fucking shit out of you because you're not, ready for them. And there's also these, moments, sounds that you hear all of a sudden that really is freaky. I mean, not scary or anything, just, freaky and, gets to you and everything. And that's actually what that means. It gets to you pretty fast. But that's about it. With the story, well, I don't really know what the fuck's going on with the story. I mean, they're like giving you bits and pieces during the whole game, and it seems like they are, acting as you should already know all this, but they don't really confirm anything or really explain anything. They just, talk for the sake of talking, really. So the story is horrible, for the exception of a twist near the end, which doesn't really make any difference, but it's like, oh, well, then it makes sense, but it's still horrible. With the characters, sure, they talk about some persons, but they're never really fully deployed as a character. They aren't, they're just there for the sake of being there, really. The same with the story, but the same. The twist has something to do with the characters, but like I said, it's still horrible because the real driving force of the game doesn't really lead to anything. These ghosts, this unexplained shit, this mystery about the island, really, it's never really explained, and that's really what's driving the whole game, the atmosphere, really. The atmosphere is made because of the ghosts and mystery, of course, but like I said, it doesn't lead to anything. It almost seems like what's the point with the whole mystery and the ghosts when it really doesn't lead to anything. They just, why? It's just like a waste of fucking time, really, or just a lie, really, to keep you focused on the game. But the atmosphere, the driving force of the atmosphere and the driving force of the game doesn't lead to anything. So it's just a waste of fucking time. Horrible. And of course with the whole, never explaining everything, never confirming everything about the real story. When they're talking, when they're talking just for the sake of talking, it seems like the story is just a giant fucking mess. There are no no structure or anything with the story. They just, just talk about shit for the sake of talking. And the only driving force with the whole game never lead to anything. They're just there for the sake of being there. But in conclusion then, Dear Esther, the problem with the gameplay is that there is no gameplay. The problem with the story is that there isn't really any story either, because the thing that's driving the game doesn't lead to anything. The only good thing that is working with the game is the atmosphere. But the atmosphere works because of one thing that doesn't lead to anything, so the atmosphere doesn't lead to anything, and it's just a giant mess, the story. I mean, the story just seems like a giant mess when they're, talking about the story, trying to explain the story, or if they're even trying, I don't really know. I mean, you can say that there's some characters walking on a path saying random, overly verbose paragrams that have nothing to do with what's going on. And no, this has nothing to do with art. And you can also say that the story is blank just for the sake of being blank. Also, you can say that there's no need for the island, there's no point for the caves, there's no point for the weird writing on the wall, it's just fucking there for the game. I mean, it's just there for the sake of being there. It doesn't, have nothing to do with anything really. Even though it's mostly the driving force with the whole game, this mystery that doesn't lead to anything. And of course, the story was something as you were, fucking playing as Esther, but you were like in a coma state or something, and while the narrator is actually sitting at your bedside. I think that is because they never really confirm it. But really though, in the end, the whole Dear Esther game, it just, leads to... I mean, the only conclusion Dear Esther is that you just wasted $10. And I just spent like $2 on that, and I still want my fucking money back because it's not worth it. It's a piece of shit really, and it's an abomination if people think it's good, because it's not good. It doesn't have any gameplay in it, it doesn't have any story in it. The only good thing about the whole game is a thing, a mystery, an atmosphere, where in the end doesn't lead to anything. So Dear Esther, it's a horrible fucking game, and it has nothing to do with art. So that's really everything about Dear Esther. There isn't really anything, it isn't really that much in this game, and what the game does, it really does horrible. Of course, if you could do something more than just fucking walking around, then maybe it could have been better, but it didn't do it, therefore it's fucking horrible. Because like I said before, I mean, the only thing that's really driving the whole game is a thing that doesn't lead to anything, and the story seems like a giant fucking mess when they're trying to explain it. And it's also very fucking short. Maybe it's good that it's very fucking short, because I don't think the game would survive just being a like 20 hours long walking simulation really. But in the end, still, Dear Esther, it's a horrible game.
Through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.